Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to our Educators webinar, Transforming Classroom Learning with Technology. Now today we are joined with 4 panelists and they are Dr. Daniel Tan, Dr. Linda William, Dr. Melissa Butt and Professor Lim Cha-Pin. I am Magdalene from IDE Academy, your host for this webinar. IDE Academy is the Singapore affiliate of the Henry Ford Museum of Invention and Entrepreneurship and is a member of the InventEd community of global educational collaborators to prepare students for a future yet to be invented. Now, this program is part of our lineup for the Pratt & Whitney Invention Convention Singapore Open Nationals 2021. Our moderator for this session is Nicholas Zhu. He is the Commercial Director for Helen O'Grady Asia, a children's speech and drama academy. He oversees business development for the Asia region and works closely with the academic team to ensure a high-quality experience for clients, parents, and children. Prior to joining Helen O'Grady, he spent most of his career in management consulting, where he worked with global and regional organizations to develop innovative growth strategies. He has extensive experience across multiple industries, including education, consumer goods, telecom, and financial services. With industry experience under his belt as well, he recognizes the importance of practical strategies in order for them to be implemented within organizations. Throughout the session, feel free to post any questions for the speakers using the Q&A function. We will have some time after the sharings to answer them. Over to you, Nicholas.
All right, thank you very much, Meg. So hi everyone and welcome to our panel discussion today on transforming classroom learning with technology. I'm Nick, the moderator for the session. So technology in the classroom has always been leveraged, right? Although maybe slowly in certain countries or in certain areas. However, with the onset of COVID, it's really become a catalyst for technology to be employed in learning, especially with the rise of edtech companies. So today we have with us 4 esteemed panelists who are regarded as experts in learning technology. They will each give a short presentation of about 10 minutes before we open up the floor for a panel discussion and Q&A with the audience. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for today who will kick us off. So Dr. Melissa Butt is a biomedical science degree graduate as well as a PhD holder. She sought to inspire the next generation of scientists by training to be a secondary school science teacher. In 2014, she founded Discovery STEM Education, a non-profit educational organization. In 2017, she became Chair of World Educational Robotics UK. In 2019, she co-founded Invent Future Global, and in 2020, became an ambassador of consequential robotics. Today, she will be sharing about how we can transform classroom learning with an AI robot pet developed at Sheffield University. So over to you, Dr. Melissa Butt.
Hi, thank you very much for that, Nick. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic, thank you. So, as Nick said, I am Dr. Melissa Butt. I am the founder of Discovery STEM Education, but I've also been working on a very exciting EPSRC funded project with the University of Sheffield and Consequential Robotics to transform classroom learning with technology. This is a very cute robot pet, which was designed originally by Sheffield University to work as a robot in academia, as an academic research robot, but to also work in healthcare and hospitals and to be a companionship robot. The project that I've been working on over the last couple of years has been to evolve this Miro robot so that he would be able to work in schools as a companionship class pet robot, but also to be used as an educational tool, which would enable young people to learn essential coding skills and also to explore the application of robots in the real world, specifically in the medical world. So we had 3 main aims of our project. The first one was to make sure that we were able to develop a coding platform for teaching the basics of block coding and Python in a fun, interactive way. Here's an example of one of the young people using the coding program that the university developed for young people to be able to use the robot. So you can see that they start off using a coding platform which looks very fun, nice and bright, very much like Blockly, and they've got an interactive simulator where they can automatically see how their code works. As the children progress and as they get better at their coding skills, they then progress to using Python. And you can see a picture of a young girl here who is using Python coding. She's just 11 years old. After 1 year of working on the Miro platform using the Blockly Pro coding, she's now working on Python. So just see if I can share a quick video with you to give you an insight into the coding platform that's been developed to enable young people to do this.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm here to talk you through the Miro Cloud program. Miro Cloud is our solution to remote learning, providing an intuitive system that allows pupils to learn to code in class and at home. Using our online interface, students can code with a simulated Miro avatar and on the Miro robot itself. This provides an engaging and rewarding learning experience. Teachers can set up and manage a class account, which allows controllable access to Miro Cloud for pupils in their class. You can use the staff page to create unique logins for every student or arrange individual signups. This provides an easy way to manage students' progress and usage. Pupils can easily log in and use Miro Cloud at school or remotely at home. As Miro Cloud is run through a browser, it doesn't matter how old or powerful your device is. You just need Wi-Fi access. Pupils simply sign into the Miro Cloud website wherever they are, allowing them to continue coding projects where they left off. This is the main Miro Cloud interface. Start your journey coding Miro by using the simple and visual Blockly coding language. You can access and select different actions, responses, and code concepts for Miro to perform from the wide variety of blocks available. Each action block controls a different aspect of Miro's behavior and can be combined to teach Miro something new. The blocks almost act like puzzle pieces and can simply be dragged and dropped into the interface and together. Users can code in Blockly or Python languages and easily switch between them. Miro Cloud can automatically translate the Blockly program into Python. The Python interface gives a deeper control and awareness of the code behind behaviors to help develop further programming skills. Code in both platforms can be tested on the full physics Miro Sim simulator to help refine and debug your code. Use your code to program and control a virtual Miro avatar in a range of specially designed environments. Users can see what Miro's two HD cameras are viewing through the Miro Vision screens, both the Miro Sim avatar and the physical Miro robot. Feedback from Miro's numerous sensors is shown in the corner, providing a visual indication of what Miro is detecting.
So that's the coding platform that has now been developed by the university, but with support from young people and their feedback. On these pictures, the children are actually in the university here, working with the academics and supporting them, giving them feedback and consultancy on how to develop the best platform for them. So a lot of young people here in the UK have been involved in the research and development of Miro to be used in the classroom. The next thing that we wanted to do in our project was to make sure that we develop lesson resources with a focus on real world situations that would also at the same time help young people to develop key coding skills. So we've developed 50 hours worth of classroom lesson plans, and each lesson is related to a real world healthcare problem And for each lesson, they then also develop an essential coding skill to go with that lesson. And they are problem solving themselves throughout the lesson rather than being taught and told exactly what to do. They're having the opportunity to problem solve. So you can see examples such as they're helping someone who has hearing difficulties by using an advanced coding skill, conditional judgment, or helping in a hospital, or helping people in a hospital waiting room, and also working as a companionship classroom pet, or helping a patient who's fallen over, and by detecting that they've fallen and then calling for help. So we know that one of the biggest barriers to transforming classrooms with technology is that teachers do need training and easy to use resources. So another part of our project was to develop lesson plans, fully detailed lesson plans, also examples of the kind of code that young people could use when they're solving the problems in the lessons. There's also worksheets for every lesson and answers for the teachers to use. There's lots of resources that can be printed and used in the classroom as visual aids so that children aren't completely using laptops and on digital all the time. They also get to do some hands-on and some writing before they go onto laptops. And there's also extensions, mostly using Python coding for all of the curriculum that we've developed. There's even there's even a teaching video to go with every lesson that we've developed, so that teachers can simply put that video on to teach the children, or they can use it in their own time to help themselves understand what they're going to teach before they teach it. This is a quick example of the kind of video that we've developed. Sorry, I've lost my presentation.
Welcome to our hospital. We pride ourselves in giving our patients the very best care, and we need you to use your coding skills to help us achieve this. Here is a map of our hospital and the corridors. It seems one of our patients has fallen over. We need you to code Miro to locate the patient, then return to the nurse's station and use an alert. You can alert them using Miro's lights on his back. Use the move forward and turn blocks to complete your challenges. When we are working with Miro code, we always start with the program start block to set up the code correctly. Today we are going to be working on moving Miro. To move Miro.
So you can see that in these videos, there's an introduction to the problem, an explanation of a little bit of the coding skills required, and then children are set off on a challenge. So the third part of our project was to train and support teachers, and we've trained almost 100 teachers in the UK, from across the UK. We've also trained teachers in Mexico, Sweden, and Pakistan. We've trained them online using the online platform for them to be able to then teach this in the classroom, and also to be able to teach it remotely as well as an online platform. Every teacher gets an official CPD certificate at the end of their teacher training and ongoing support. And at the moment, Pratt and Whitney Invention Convention Singapore attendees are able to use the special discount code that you can see on here if they wanted to get their own Miro to transform their own classrooms. They would also get access to introductory teacher training, fully funded, which is 4 hours of 1 hour Zoom teacher training, 50 hours worth of curriculum for young people aged between 7 to 16, the official certificate, and ongoing technical support and ongoing teacher training. If anybody would like to see more information of how Miro has been used in the classroom, and they can email me on the email at the bottom of this page. You can also see lots of videos and see lots of pictures of how we've been using Miro in classrooms on our Twitter page and on our Facebook page as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Melissa Butt, for the very inspiring presentation. It's actually really amazing to see these young children be able to code, even at such a young age of 10, 11 years old. I think at that age, I was probably, I wasn't even sure what I was doing now, but then definitely not coding at that point in time. And I think what you've also rightly pointed out, that technology doesn't just need to work for students as well. You also really need to have the right resources to support the teachers accordingly. Otherwise, it's very difficult to implement the technology within the classroom. So once again, thank you very much. Now let's move on to our next speaker. Who we have next is Dr. Daniel Tan. Dr. Daniel Tan is co-founder and board member of the eLearning Forum Asia. Dr. Tan established eLearning at Nanyang Technological University and steered the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching to global prominence. Dr. Tan has authored dozens of publications and has been conferred numerous awards, among them the Global eLearning Leadership Award. Today, he'll be sharing with us on the topic Post-COVID New Normal for Future Readiness. So today, COVID has really accelerated the pace of change in education. You have things like artificial intelligence with deep learning, smart systems and algorithms, autonomous robotics, and big data that will likely define and create the future. Disruptions and rapid change will be widespread, and the demand outcomes that demand beyond regular traditional curriculum. So Dr. Tan will share a little bit more about the broad trends and what we can do to consider and prepare for the new normal. Dr. Tan, over to you. I think we have a little bit of a tech issue at this point in time. Just give us a minute. Okay, I think we have lost him for a moment. Okay, so we'll move on to our next speaker first before coming back to Dr. Tan. So we have Dr. Linda William, who is a senior lecturer in the School of Informatics and IT at Temasek Polytechnic. She's an astute researcher in the areas of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science. Dr. Linda William has published many articles in leading journals, conferences, and books. Today, she'll be sharing a little bit about understanding students' learning using smart, serious game analytics. So gamification has been introduced as an interactive educational tool for teaching and learning processes. It incorporates entertainment elements into an interactive game environment to enhance student engagement and improve student learning. However, understanding the learning process of a student that uses serious game is difficult. And two main problems are really how to understand students' skill and performance improvement, as well as how to capture and analyze the data. So let us hear from Dr. Linda William on how do we take up these key challenges. Over to you, Dr. Linda William.
Hi, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Okay, so thank you for the very nice introductions, Nick. So my name is Dr. Linda, Dr. Linda William. I'm from Temasek Polytechnic, Singapore. Okay, so today I'm just going to share about our research project on how we try to understand the student learning using smart serious game analytics. So this project is actually as a research project supported by Ministry of Education in Singapore under its translational R&D and innovation fund. So we actually have like quite a big research group, not really that big, quite a number of us included in the research group. So we have several lecturers and also research staff and also several students that joining us as an interns to work in this research project. So basically what we are trying to do in this research is we actually trying to use the serious game to engage students to understand more or to learn about a certain topics. So in brief, serious game is basically a games that created not with the primary purpose of entertainment, but with the intentions to use on in the training, educations, and healthcare. So basically, it's trying to, other than entertainments, other than engaging the users or the gamers with their interactive designs and so on. It's also basically try to get across of some topics or get the students to learn certain topics that we wanted them to understand. So there are a lot of serious games. These are two examples of the serious games that is available online. So one of it is the Code Combat. Is a online game that help the students to, or help the players to learn codings. So they can actually use a Java, Python, and so on to for their codings. And another examples is the Minecraft. So I think we are quite familiar with Minecraft. So other than the entertainment Minecraft, they also have like educational editions for the Minecraft. Okay, so we actually interested of implementing a serious game in our one of our subjects. And then when we try to implement the serious game, there are a few challenges that we actually find. Our top two challenges is how to balance between the entertainment components with the pedagogy components. So I know that the games will actually make the students engage and so on, but we also wanted to balance or balance between the entertainments or the fun elements with also with the pedagogy components. Then another challenges that we face is how can we understand this learner skills and performance improvement. How can we understand that the student is really learning, not just having good time playing the games. So these are a few challenges that we actually, these are our top two challenges when we wanted to implement a serious game. So to solve or to answer to these questions, right, we actually try to come up with our smart serious game analytics design. So what is this about? So we try to actually combine or try to balance the entertainment components with the pedagogy components. So for our serious game, we always start with the concepts or the skill or the knowledge that we wanted to teach our students. And then from there, then we actually try to find out what is the learning outcomes that we want the students to understand for a particular subjects. And then from there, then we come up with like several assessment points, and then break this assessment point will be break down into the questions for each topic and subtopic in the particular subjects. Then using this assessment point, then we try to incorporate it into the game scenario. So the game scenario will have all the entertainment elements such as engagement, event, challenge, fantasy, and playability that will make the students engage and make the students actually willing to play the game. So using this game scenario and then with the assessment point incorporated in that, then we actually wanted the students to voluntarily learn about the topics, about the subtopics. Then using that game scenario, game environment, we collected several game data that we can actually use for the serious game analytics. So from the game data, we actually collected the relevant data, such as like how many times that the students try the game, how many times, what is their score, how many times that the students try to answer the questions, or whether the students answer the question correctly, or whether they actually need some time to understand the questions, or whether they failed to answer the question correctly and so on. Those kind of those kind of data are saved into a game data, and then from that game data we use that to develop an analytics or a learning analytics for the students. So in the nutshell, actually our designs, right, we have like two tools that connected with each other. The first tool will be the serious game engine, when we have like all the game scenarios and then the assessment points, and then we also have the second tool, which is the analytics engine, where we analyze the game data and then analyze the interactions that the student have within the game to find out their learning behavior. So these two tools actually connected in like one infrastructures, where all the data actually shared between the game and also the analytics engine. So these are like our wannabe coders. So these are the demo of what we actually developed. So let me just play this one. Okay, yeah, so these are the prototype of our game. Okay. So how is the data transfer process in the game? So basically the game, right, will retrieve the subject information from our Cher database. So for the subjects, topic, subtopic, question, answer, hints, and so on, it will actually store in a database. So whatever we have a new subjects, new question, new topics, and so on, so the lecturer can just like key into the database, and then it will be able to show in the game. So all of this data will be stored in the database, and then the game can actually retrieve the subject's information. Then throughout the game sessions, several relevant and important game data will be retrieved, will be saved, and then this game data will be saved in the same database. So in the same database, so this data such as like game logger, user game data, subtopic attempt log, question attempt logs, and also a text feedback. So this game data actually will be used by the analytics to understand the student behavior. So to understand the student behavior in the data analytics, right, we actually come up with like different kind of insight from the for the lecturer. So we can actually have like insight for what is the average of the attempt, and then what is the distribution score, and then what is the average score for the selected class, and so on. So this analytics can also go into details of the students. So if you wanted to see like if you see like some particular students actually perform below the average or do not really perform well, then we can actually go to the detail and then see the informations about the students and how the student actually interact with the game, and then how they actually try to do the questions and so on in the game. Other than that informations like from the score and so on, we also have like the text feedback from the students. So this text feedback actually it's kind of like an open-ended questions that we ask to the students when they finish playing, like when they finish playing the game for every sessions or every level they finish, then we can actually ask them which are the topics that they find the most difficult, and then or what are the difficulties that they face in learning these topics, and we also ask what do they think about this topic. So from here, right, we actually did several machine learning models inside. So first we actually have like the keyword discovery, where from the subtopics that they key in or the feedback that they key in, we try to find out which are the subtopics that are commonly mentioned by the students. So these are like keywords discovery that we actually develop to capture the students' feedback. So and then after that we actually use word clouds to visualize or to visualize that feedbacks to the lecturer. So example of these feedbacks such as like when we ask them which are the topics that they find it difficult in the programming topic, they actually say that the difficult thing is like functions, array, loop, or class. Okay. Then another machine learnings that we actually develop for this analytics is sentiments analytics. So when we ask them what do they think about that topic, then we actually apply a machine learning sentiment analytics model to find out whether they have like a positive sentiments or a negative sentiments about the topics. So this one will also like be shown in the graph where the lecturer can actually see how many students that have like a positive sentiments, and then how many students that have a negative sentiments. Then they can actually go to the details. So using this insight from the data and analytics, so how can the lecturer actually use it? So actually this the insights that we presented to the lecturer actually is meant for the lecturer to use it for intervention purposes. So for example, when we're talking about sentiments, so when they see that there are several students that have a negative sentiments, then they can actually go to the detail and see which are the students that have a negative sentiments. So the lecturer can actually try to help the learners or the students that have a negative sentiments. Maybe they actually have the negative sentiments because they do not really understand the topic. So the lecturer can help them to understand the topic better. So using this insight, right, it will be easy for the lecturer to identify the students that may not have like a good understandings about the topic. Then another insight, like for example, the keyword discovery, from this keyword discovery, right, the lecturer can actually see which are the topics that the student find it difficult. Then from there, the lecturer can actually do additional scaffoldings to the students, and then to see then maybe like to review the topics again to make the students understand the topic better. Then as the same as the sentiments, the lecturer also can see the details, who are the students that think that this topic is difficult and so on. So it can help the lecturers to identify the students and also to identify the topics that are difficult. So it's easier for them to actually do more scaffoldings than to help the students understand the topics. So I come to almost the end of my presentations. So in the concluding remarks, so how do we try to balance between the entertainment components and the pedagogy components? We try to balance it by using these frameworks, these designs, where we always start with the learning outcomes and then the assessment points of a particular topic before we start with the game scenario. So we try to blend it together such that the entertainment components and then the pedagogy components are balanced. Then the second one, how do we understand the learner performance, whether they're improving their skills or not? So we actually try to do that using the analytics, the data analytics. So the data analytics can provide some insight whether the student actually learn the topics or not. So yeah, that's basically what what we are currently doing. So this is still an ongoing work. So we are still adding a lot of machine learning models to be included in the solutions. So such as a clustering model to find out which are the students that perform in a different which are the students that perform in which are the students group that perform in the similar way, and then how can we intervene, or how we can actually help them to perform to perform or to understand the topic better. Yeah. So that will be the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions or anything, do feel free to connect with me. If you are more interested to learn more about this serious game and game analytics, do feel free to email me and then connect with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linda William, for taking us through a deep dive into the use of gamification as a technology. It certainly is a very important tool today to engage students to improve learning outcomes as well. And the use of gamification has basically exploded with the likes of Nearpod and Kahoot coming mainstream too. But once again, as you rightly pointed out, I mean, tracking the efficacy of it is also important, right? We see it across industries, even beyond education, where at times where we don't have proper tracking of measurement systems and we don't know what's going on. So without tracking, we can't identify the impact and what needs to improve to further optimize the learning experience for both teachers and students. And with so many tech tools out there, it can be overwhelming without proper measurement. So that's it. With so many of these different tech tools, let's find out a little more from Dr. Daniel Tan, who will speak about the post-COVID new normal for future readiness. Dr. Daniel Tan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. Yeah, I do apologize for the little hiccup just now. My mom was passed on, said to me, ladies first, right? So it was good that ladies went first. So now it's the guy's turn. Yeah, I'm very happy to share with you about what I see, the bigger picture, what is happening. I think COVID has brought in a lot of rethink on how we teach people, what is important, and also what is more important. And some of these things will be something I will cover in my sharing. To help us, to make sense of what is happening, it's good sometimes to refer to people who have gone before. And I like Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits. He talks of begin with the end in mind. All right. So what I'm going to share with you is to look at the end of what education can be and should be in the light of COVID, what he has exposed, what he has highlighted, and what he has shown to be critical for the future of our kids. And then from there, work backwards so that we are able to see where we are and how to get to their end point. And so this is something like one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. If you can go back to the future, we like to see, what is the end point that we're trying to reach so that we will be able to reach the environment, what kind of environment we need to consider, and what we can do as individuals, and of course, where we are and how can we pursue the journey. One of the references that I look forward to every year, among other publications, as we navigate and make sense of what is happening and how we can respond to the future, it is in accordance to the words of one of the best hockey players in Canada. He said that he is one of the best players, not because he is good with his hockey stick, but he's able to be where the puck would be going to next. In other words, that he will not go to where the hockey puck, the hockey ball that's used in ice hockey, will not rush towards where the puck is, but he will move to where the puck will be, so that when the puck goes to the point, he is there ready for it. So likewise, we try to do something similar. We try to ask ourselves what is going to be up ahead and make our way towards that point, rather than going to where the puck is. By the time we have moved to the present location, the puck has gone somewhere else. And so one of the compasses which I use, among others, is the World Economic Forum report. Every 2 years, since 2016, they come up with a report that talks about the future of jobs. And at the end of the day, we recognize that the whole education system is to prepare people for the economy. Whether they be a job seeker or a job creator, it is to be there so that they are able to contribute meaningfully to society, to some economic activity. And in all the three reports, it talks about the shifting trends of what is emerging, what is declining as well. But it has something common. And that common observation is what are the top skills that industry requires in the next few years. And when we look into the skill sets, and this is the top 10 skills for the 2025, we find that of the 10, only 2 of them has to do with technical knowledge or knowledge in general. The rest of the skill sets which are given in here, interestingly, they are all non-technical. They are what we call soft skills. And one of the interesting comments is that the soft skills of today will become the hard skills of tomorrow, because that is the, if you like, the core skill sets that employers will be looking for year after year. And they've been doing so for the past, since 2018, when the first report came out, right? They've been looking for it. And this led us to ask ourselves, what we are doing in schools, in the classroom, from K-12 all the way to secondary, are we preparing students so that when they leave school, either after O-levels, A-levels, or poly, or the university, would they be able to get a job, right? And the expectation, and this is based on many surveys, that employers, they are expecting our students to have the skill sets which are listed, the 10 skill sets which are listed in the right column. They expect our students to be what we call future ready. And interestingly, when you look into the skill sets, okay, let me just do here. When you look into the skill sets, you find that the skill sets which are listed in here, they are outside the syllabus, right? The technical skill sets which are on the use of knowledge and business knowledge or industrial knowledge, they are in the syllabus, but those other skill sets are outside the syllabus. And because of this, if we prepare students to know, to be trained in technical knowledge, we may miss the big picture. And this was raised by a few authors, right? And one of them I came across when that was published in The Guardian. It was published in pre-COVID times in 2017, but already, he made the observation that in the age of robots, in the age of Industry 4.0, right, schools are teaching our children to be redundant, right? And he was talking in the context of the K-12 schools, right? Because he realized that robots can do a lot of things that we train our students to do, right? But there are certain things that robots cannot do, being creative, like critical thinking, and also having social skill sets. Not only did he make such a remark, in the West, there's somebody in the East who I would like to share, who also make a similar remark. Of course, we don't hear much from Jack Ma today, like Confucius, Socrates, on that. We don't hear much of them, but what they say in wisdom, we take and we value them. So way back in 2018, he made this statement in a conference, I think in Davos. He said that we cannot teach our kids to compete with machines. Now, for Jack Ma, I give a bit more credence and consideration because like many of us, Jack Ma was a teacher. He started his career teaching in a university. And I think when he has been to both sides, industry as well as the academia, he's able to join the dots and realize that, at the end of the day, where our students who we see in the class, whether in K-12 or in the college or poly or university, eventually they have to go out to the workforce. And when they are there, we got to make sure that they are able to augment rather than compete with the machines, be a computer, a robot, an algorithm, or a system. We must not compete with them directly, but we can see how we can work together. And so in this regard, the response which I think we need to think for those of us in education, whether informal education, like in K-12 or schools, in the under the government, under the Ministry of Education, or under the supplementary education like Invention Academy and Montessori and Learning Lab and others, is to ask ourselves, what are we doing towards preparing our students so that they are able to have a more holistic kind of environment? And in that regard, I find that the response that we need to have has to be system-wide, right? In other words, we need to look into the learning environment rather than at the individual, right? And so when I look at the various presentations that were done earlier during this convention, most of the focus was on the individual, the growth mindset, of what the student can do, but sometimes, we need to look into the environment as well. And for those of us who are familiar with the parable of the sower, in this story, the farmer was the one who sowed the seeds. And of course, depending on where they fell, there were different outcomes. I think the key lesson is this: the seeds that were sown by the farmer, they were all good seeds. The question was, what sort of environment they fall into? And so what I'm saying is this: even if you want our students to have growth mindset, to have positivity, and to be curious, but if they are in an environment that treats them like a factory, or which are very inflexible and very stringent with fixed pathways, they won't be able to be as productive as the seed that falls on good soil. And so in that regard, I'd like to propose that maybe let's look at the bigger picture and see where we are doing, which was good in, and see what else you need to consider so that we have a more holistic viewpoint. Right, and in my career and my past experience with various entities that I've worked with, I realized that one of the things that we need to rethink or maybe to relook is to look at how we develop our people in the education system, right? So here I have 3 circles representing academic excellence, which is what we are very good in schools. We teach syllabus, we cover topics at both the basic, the intermediate, and advanced level. And then we also realize that there's the need to calculate life skills. For example, teamwork, conflict resolution. We need to look into problem solving. We need to help our students, to be inclusive and to have a cultural intelligence. At the same time, we also realize that emotional well-being is important, and this is important in COVID, right? When we take away the environment, we find our students, and our teachers as well, suddenly we realize that even our workers, of our family members who are working, the emotional well-being becomes very, very important. All right, and this aligned to what we call the head, the hand, and the heart. Okay, the head represents academic excellence, the life skills, the hands, and the heart is where we focus on the emotional well-being. And so when we talk about the head, we talk about lifelong learning. For life skills, is life-wide, because these skill sets, as I alluded earlier, is what employers are looking for. They want you to be a good judgment, somebody who can work in teams, somebody who's able to apply, to have good EQ and things like that, right? And of course, you got the heart. Okay, now this is what we need to ask ourselves: are we coming into a situation where we are able to see the different components of the holistic education and how we can bring them together? And I think the critical point which I want to underline is that it should start not when the students are in university, but when they are in kindergarten, right? Which is why, in many ways, this convention, the focus is with the K-12. I mean, I'm very awed, and pleased that the PCF it has many entries in here, because we need to start the process when they are young, not when they are in year one of the Polytechnic or the university, or in year 3. We need to look at them at this concept of holistic education right from the beginning, right? So if this is the idea, where are we today? Right, like I said earlier, in terms of academic excellence, I think we are very good. We got the top ranking in the universities. We got PISA high scores. So we are very good in that, and we have been able to incorporate life skills into the curriculum. Right, so that's a good development that we have today. Right, we're getting students to work in teams. We want our students to be creative, to be involved in projects. But where we are not doing well, and we are just beginning to understand, is integrating emotional well-being, right, into the curriculum. And so when I present this diagram, it is to say that we will pursue all 3 dimensions in the day by day, week by week, program by program curriculum, rather than as an ad hoc kind of activity, right? And we recognize that the process to achieve this is a journey, all right? And this is what I call the maturity pathway. Today, this is where we are, right? We are good in academic excellence. We have put in life skills in there, but emotional well-being is something that we have excluded. And in time to come, and I hope that we do, in the light of COVID, is to integrate into the holistic pedagogy all these 3 dimensions. Okay, and this has been done when I was way back in NTU, where we created learning spaces, where we came up with learning space design whereby students work in groups. And we noticed that when they work in groups, they develop social skill sets. They learn to be considerate. They learn to even resolve conflict. And because not everybody agrees to the solution. And even when they face failure, when they give the wrong answer, how the group of students actually become closer and work even better, right? How failure brings the people together, right? And what was interesting was this was a daily, hourly situation, because in a classroom, the students work in clusters of about 7 to 8 students per cluster. Those things are happening on a daily basis. And the idea then was that when they go out to work, they will be working in a similar environment of sitting together in groups. And in that regard, we find that our students, after they've gone through 3 or 4 years in NTU, in a kind of environment, they are more socially developed, more holistic, more aware of themselves, the EQ, and more aware of the other people who are in the group. And if you're able to achieve this integration well, I think it will be a good, ideal situation. Okay, and of course, in the light of COVID, we realize that there are not 3 circles, there are actually 4 circles. And what is this circle? Well, it is what we call meta learning, right? You heard of metaverse. Meta learning is the ability, is the skill set which will help you to learn, to relearn, and also to unlearn. Right? Because the answers that we have today to questions of old, they have changed. Okay, and of course, part of the way to pursue this is through what we call developing a growth mindset, I think, which has been covered earlier. And so that is something that I think as a campus, as a school, as an organization, we can see how we can bring these 3 dimensions in an integrated way, not on the monthly or one-off basis or project basis or society basis, but on a daily basis, even hour by hour. Okay, so have a look at the environment, okay, the learning environment. I want to now talk about the journey, lifelong journey, right? I mean, the phrase from cradle to grave has been mentioned. Yeah, and even when that was mentioned, I sort of chuckled and thought, hey, actually, for some people, they even start earlier. It is from fetus, right, to grave. Because for some parents, they already expose the kid to Beethoven, to Mozart, even while it was still developing during the trimesters. And I think that's interesting. Okay, so on the topic of growth mindset, sometimes you ask yourself, so how do we visualize, or what does it mean to me? Because the concept, although it is clear, can also be abstract, right? So one way of putting it to sort of purpose and meaning to the individual is that many of us, when we go through our program, whether we are stream or we go to pursue a specialized program, we develop what we call the I-shaped mindset, whereby we are expert in one thing. Okay, of course, there are some programs where they look into broad-based education, right? And that is something that the IB program is very strong in, and in fact, the A levels, they are also evolving, from something that is very academic to something that's more holistic. So the realization that we need to develop the broad base has resulted in what we call a T-shaped model, right? Whereby the individual, while they are expert in one area, okay, they are also capable in a few, or they are knowledgeable across a broad spectrum. Now, this I think is something that has been talked about way back. If you do a Google search, IBM had this training philosophy of having such people. I think way back in the early 2000s, so we talk about maybe 15, 20 years ago, right? And this is something that I think we need to also get our young people to look, so that as part of the journey to have a growth mindset, they will not just be good in one area, but across as well, right? And more recently, and people begin to realize that, hey, it is not just the in one area, why not focus on 2, right? In other words, you have what we call the pie, okay, the pie model, whereby while you're broad-based, you are also strong in 2 areas, right? And that's one of the reasons why joint degree programs, hours PM, joint degree programs have become pretty popular and getting attraction, whereby you specialize in a major and a minor. And I think in many universities as well, you got core electives, you got the special electives. The whole intent is to get students to be broad-based as well as vertical. And so from the T, we're now going into the pie. And if you're able to do well, right, you have what we call the H model. And this is where you excel, right? You excel in one domain. And of course, if you are able to excel in more than one domain, then you have the H, capital H, right? Now, this part of the growth mindset, whereby we learn through experimentation, through failure, through specialization, through sharing. and through knowledge understanding. And H is this capital H, which we have in here. I think it's something that we all can aspire to attain. Okay, and if we are able to go one step further, do you know what we have? Any idea? Well, we have the A model, whereby we are able to combine two specialization and able to bring that together. And that is where we get invention, we get innovations as well. And so here we have, if you like, the whole journey, right? We call that the ITIHA growth mindset, right? That will, if you like, help our young people, to think that their journey of growing is just not a destination, right? It is a journey that will take them through the pathway to be able to effective contribution. And so my last point is, when do we do it? Well, the future is now, all right? We should get our young people, whether they are in school, in K-12, in poly or university, or even the workforce, to follow the saying of Confucius, that we should look beyond where we are, 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, right? We should pursue this journey of holistic development, integrated, some people call it integrated education, that will bring us to the next level, so that when our students come out of the journey, they will have become inventors, innovators, people who are knowledgeable as well. Right, with that, I end my sharing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Daniel Tan. I mean, holistic development is definitely key. A lot of these skills that you shared earlier are very transferable. You can employ them in any of the industry or context generally, and allows people to basically freely move around as well. So there definitely needs to be a rethink of curriculum in schools, and not just at the higher education level, right? As an employee myself, I mean, at times I find there's a disconnect between what the industry needs as well as what graduates can bring to the table. So that being said, I think one of the quotes that you shared earlier by Jack Ma, we cannot teach our kids to compete with machines. I think it's really good. I mean, it's a fact, for instance, that automation is going to be a way of life, and we need to be able to transition to play complementary roles. And so that leads us very nicely to what our speaker by Prof. Lim Chirping is going to share. So Prof. Lim Chirping is the Chair Professor of Learning Technologies and Innovation at the Education University of Hong Kong. His research and development focus has been on supporting the sustainability and scalability of innovations in schools and teacher education institutes. Prof. Lim area of expertise also includes games and learning in schools and ICT in teacher education. Prof. Lim currently serves as editor-in-chief of the Internet and Higher Education Journal as well. And today he will be sharing about robot-proofing the education system. So I'm going to hand it off over to Prof. Lim. Over to you.
Yep. Hi, a very good afternoon to all, and thank you, Nick, for the introduction. Daniel said, it's like when he came on after the two ladies, he said, like, ladies first. I came on after Daniel, so I've got to say, 尊老爱幼. For those who are not Chinese, it means respect your elders and love your future generation. Right? So that's why I let Daniel go first. Right. I think I'm just going to really pick up quite a bit of what Daniel has said, and also draw upon both the Melissa as well as Linda's presentation on decoding and the type of competencies that we would like to see in our children. Right, so to robot-proof the education is not to move away from technologies in teaching and learning, but is actually to make sense of it, to be able to embrace it, and to be able to go back to the basics and ask really basic questions, to be able to rethink and reimagine what education, what learning should be. Right, so I am Chirping, you can call me Chirp. I'm a Singaporean, right? But I've been based out of Singapore and in Australia and in Hong Kong for the last 16 years. I would probably start the presentation with the Asian century, right? For those of you who have read the Asian Development Bank's publication back in 2011, right? They made this really bold prediction, right? That by 2050, you have got 3 billion Asians that will be able to enjoy the similar living standards of the middle class of those in Europe, right? With Asia accounting for more than half of the global output, right? And if you actually take a look at this map and take a look at the growth in terms of the middle class, right? You could see how it will grow from 2009 through to 2030 and then eventually to 2050. Right, we would expect that Asia is the largest producers of goods and services, and will also be the largest consumers of goods and services, right? And it will probably have the majority of the world's middle class by 2050. If you have been looking at the title of my slides, you will see that there's a question mark, the Asian century. The Asian century is based on the prediction. It's based on the prediction that is drawn upon evidences, right? Especially how resilient the Asian economies have been, right? Due to the global financial crisis back in 2008, right? Where you see outside of Asia, there are threats of unemployment, national bankruptcy, housing sector collapse in Europe, in North America, etc. Right, but the thing is, when you are actually looking at the growth, the GDP, right, of quite a lot of countries in Asia, especially those in Southeast Asia, you see quite a lot of double-digit growth, right? But there's still that question mark. Why that question mark, right? I think that question mark is actually brought about by the complexities that we actually face today, the complexities with regards to social, political, geographical type of tension, right? So you have got a Brexit a couple of years ago, you have got an ongoing detention, right, between the US and China. And of course, you have got the ISIS that is a continuous threat, not just in the Middle East, but also in Southeast Asia as well. Right, and if we just look at closer to home, I spoke about the growth in terms of the economy. It's like double-digit GDP growth in Southeast Asia. Right, but I think it's as the economy is growing and the rich becoming richer, right, you realize that there is a growing income gap. The social economic situations start to worsen with that gap, right? So in the foreground, you have got the slums, and then in the background, you have got nice greening type of high rises, right? So that disparity is there, right? And of course, if you look at our beaches, you look at our environment, you will realize that there is that environmental decay there. And of course, the whole issue of climate change as well, right? So that's why the question mark, right? So will the Asian century actually be materialized, right? That's a question that we constantly have, right? It does not help in the case of McKinsey report in 2017, right? That predict that by 2030, which is just less than 10 years from now, 800 million jobs would be replaced, right? 800 million jobs. And we know that within Southeast Asia, I'm not talking about Singapore, but if you look at countries around us, and even in South Asia itself, there are still quite a number of industries that are very low value added industries, right? So you start to actually worry about, what happened to what happened to those industries, and therefore what would happen to the unemployment rate in those countries, right? So it actually emphasized the importance of investment in human capital, which is education, right? And it's going to be the key driving force, right, as we try to address these complexities and also addressing, I would say threat by emerging technologies, right? But the very fact that the possibility, the reality of AI replacing jobs, right? Especially the low added value jobs, right? The pandemic have actually highlighted that a bit more, right? From the education perspective, it being a learning crisis, right? If you take a look at this particular map, and I'm talking about 1.5 years ago, you will have realized that in most countries around the world, including in Asia, right, schools are closed. But it's not just the physical closure of schools, right? But it is the need to be able to provide online and remote learning, to be able to replace and to be able to substitute face-to-face learning, right? It's not so much by choice, right? It is something that have got to be done, right? And what happened is, due to that shift, right, there's quite a big learning loss in quite a number of regions and quite a number of countries, right, especially students from marginalized groups, right, who have very limited access to this online and remote learning. It may be girls in some situation, there might be students with special learning needs, students from ethnic minority, religious minority, etc., right? Or the thing is, so it is quite likely that over that 1.5 year period, right, there's that huge learning loss, and you begin to see that disparity, that gap actually widening, right? So it's a gap that we are aware of, but I think due to the pandemic, that gap is being highlighted, right? So it comes back to why that question mark. Right, if we are not able to make sense of all these complexities and all these challenges that Asia is actually facing, what is very likely to happen by 2050, right, is that we won't be operating based on the pie chart on the left, right, but we'll be actually operating based on the pie chart on the right, right, whereby you could see that the world output and consumption have drastically shrunk, right? Asia only having a percentage of the total global output, right? That is if we are not able to make sense of these complexities, if we are not able to make sense of, if we are not able to address these tensions. So, which means that what we want in education, right, is like we want our young people to be prepared to be agents of change, not just passive observers that is very driven by textbooks and what the curriculum wants them to be able to achieve, right? But I think it's at the same time, we want them to be able to live together. I think like Daniel have came up with a list of competencies that is most valued by the industries, right? So and the thing is, you could see like teamwork, collaboration all there, right? And we want them to be able to live together, work together in an increasing diverse and complex society, and to be able to constantly reflect and interpret fast changing information. So we want them to be able to think global, right? It's quite a passive term, right? Right, but it is still very relevant today, right? To be able to think global, right? But to be able to then act local, right? On the different environmental, social, cultural, social, economic, social, political situation within the country, within the region, or within a particular province or particular district. Right, that leads me to the main part of my talk, which is what then do we mean by robot-proof the education? I think we probably need to go back to the basics. The UNESCO just came up with a new publication about, I would say, 2 weeks back, right? Like more than 10 days back, about reimagining our futures together, looking at social contract for education, right? And they, in that particular document, right, or report, it's not really a white paper, right, because it didn't really provide recommendations, but it raised questions and issues, right? There's a need for a new social contract for education to actually allow us to rethink learning and the relationship between students, teachers, knowledge, and the world, right? So we should be asking ourselves questions. So really going back to the basics of what education is, right? So what should we continue doing in education? What are we doing right? What should we abandon? Right. So we need to be able to reflect, critically reflect, and identify areas for improvement. What needs to be creatively imagined, right? And drawing upon the foundational principles of assuring the right to quality education throughout life, right? And to strengthen education as a public endeavor where there needs to be conversation between teachers, school leaders, policymakers, parents, and the key stakeholders of education, right? And the thing is to be able to see education as a common good, right? So which means that rethinking education, we must be looking at not just quality, right, but equity in terms of inclusiveness, right? The inclusiveness to that quality of education and efficiency, not just about cost effectiveness, right? But as what Daniel have said about efficiency in terms of how relevant is the education outcomes to our industries. Are we preparing our graduates for the industries? Right, so really rethinking our education outcomes, right? Not just about economic relevance, but also the quality of life. I think Daniel highlighted the whole notion of the need to develop, to actually look into the well-being, right? The well-being of our learners, right? And the thing is, we would then be looking at a range of competencies from critical thinking right through to learning for life. And if we want to ensure quality learning, right, throughout one's lifetime as jobs become relevant and irrelevant and tasks are being taken over by AI, right, the learning for life is probably the only key competency that you need, right, to ensure that you're able to remain relevant. The learner's curriculum and assessment, I think, to be really aligned to what we have actually spoken about, right? The need to be able for students to be able to monitor and manage their own learning. We want them to be lifelong learners, as what I've said. The need for interdisciplinary studies, and as we rethink the curriculum and reform the curriculum, there's a need to actually rethink the assessment as well, right? And of course, all this could be facilitated by technologies, right? So maybe 3D printing using using 3D artifacts that could be used in the classrooms, right? That may be low cost, right? Especially in low resource schools, where we could look at the simulators, AR, VR, right? Like in the case of what you see on top of a bioreactor costing like 10,000 USD for one-time use, right? You could consider the use of the VR, right? The massive open online courses or open courseware, whereby there may be quality open access resources that you might be able to tap upon, right, and be able to bring into the classroom and to be able to bring into the school, right? And of course, the whole notion of games as well, how you could be tapping upon games within the education sector, right? So this whole rethinking and this whole need to rethink the pedagogies as we are drawing upon technologies actually would highlight the pivotal role of the education workforce, right? Where we want to emphasize that, yes, the role of the teachers are critical, but teachers always need the support from school leaders, the education officials, it's like from the MOE, from the district office, from the school cluster office, the learning assistants, the teaching assistant, the school administrators, the school counselors, the community social workers, and of course, the parents, right? So as we move like out of the pandemic and live with the endemic, as in the case of the Singapore, right? I think we really also need to really think about how do we focus on students from marginalized communities? How do we ensure that they have access to that quality education? Not just access into schools, but access to that quality learning, right? And the combined workforce is actually one of the most pivotal elements, right, as we look into transforming the education system. So I would probably want to end here. Thank you very much, and back to Nick.
Thank you very much, Prof. Lim, for that presentation. I think once again, like as you have mentioned as well, I mean, that holistic development is really key for the younger generation in order for us to cope with the new future. And it's, at the end of the day, it's an entire ecosystem that needs to be there to support the education, right, for children itself. It's not just the teachers alone, but everyone within that system itself. So thank you very much for sharing. Once again, to Dr. Melissa Butt, Dr. Linda William, Dr. Daniel Tan, and Prof. Lim, thank you for your insightful presentations. We certainly see that tech is key in learning today, and even kids at a young age are already leveraging tech to learn, but it really shouldn't be the sole focus, right? We still need to build that holistic skill set in order to be relevant in 2025, as mentioned by the World Economic Forum. Trying to compete with robots or AI technology is probably a very futile goal. So we really need to pivot and find new roles that we can play in this new normal to continue being relevant, especially for workers who may be displaced in the future. How can they actually upskill themselves for the future? So I think that's a question that we all probably need to address eventually. But that's it. We do have a few more minutes, so I really like to just get some of the attendee questions here. I think the first one is for Dr. Daniel Tan. So I think in today's day and age, everyone has to be tech savvy and have some tech knowledge. So as an educator, what are some of the guiding principles when deciding what tech and how much to incorporate in the classroom?
Hey, thank you for the question, Sarah, right? You asked a good question. In fact, your question is a very insightful question. The answer, unfortunately, is not simple, right? So let me just put it this way: the tech is the easy part, right? Can you hear me? Yeah, the technology is the easy part, but before the technology can be used, there's a lot of steps required, to make it happen. Right, which is why I talk about the environment, whereby for the seed to grow, right, the environment must be right. Because we have, in my previous projects, I've seen how innovators and teachers like Dr. Linda and Dr. Melissa and many other doctors who are very innovative, right? When they try to bring in the technology or innovation into the classroom, sometimes the effort is not recognized. Why? Because the student feedback form does not provide for such innovation. Right? It does not measure or recognize. Or sometimes the management or the environment, which what Professor Chirpin alluded to, the environment is not there to support those activities. Right. So if you want to do it right, you got to do it as a system level. All right, so that includes a policy from the top down to recognize and to support and to reward those sort of individual efforts of innovation. At the same time, to provide a kind of training support to enable the faculty to use the technology, right? There are too many projects which have failed when technology has been provided to the teachers and there was no training, right? There's one, I won't mention the name of the country, where they give a one-to-one to all students and give to one laptop to the teacher. And after 1 year, they realize that the teacher do not know how to use the laptop in the classroom for teaching and learning. Yeah, for email or that they know, but not for teaching and learning. And the students were using it for their own social, Facebook, the chat applications. So it wasn't, if you like, made use of for teaching and learning, right? So when we want to bring in technology, we got to look into support recognition as well as to train the teachers to make use of it so that when it is implemented for the students, they're all aligned. Now, if the ducks are not in line, your outcomes will not be there, right? So I'll not answer your question directly because, like I said, the technology is the easy part. It's the whole ecosystem that need to be correct, need to be ready, so that like the seeds, it will grow and bring in the outcome, right? To talk more, I can take it offline. Yeah, I can share more about what we have done. I have seen the outcomes. But because of time, I sorry, I can't take it more in detail.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dan. I think we also saw a little bit from Dr. Melissa Butt earlier when she was talking
Yes.
about get implemented a robotics plan. It beyond just being able to engage the students, you really need to support the teachers as well on the back end so that they can successfully execute whatever technology you want to employ. So, I mean, there's a question for Dr. Melissa Butt here as well. I mean, from Emily, and the question is learning coding widely implemented in UK schools now?
Thank you. It's growing, but it's still not implemented widely enough to meet the demands of the careers of the future for our country. But it's very clear that teachers are excited and want to incorporate it into their classrooms and into their learning, and students really do embrace it and are really excited about learning and using more technology in the classrooms. We do need to do a lot more work to make sure that it's implemented into all schools. And the predictions are that it will probably become compulsory in the curriculum within the next few years. But yeah, it's growing, but there's a lot of work to be done, and it's not in every school and it's not compulsory at the moment. One of the big things that we hear from teachers is that they are really keen, and somebody wrote a question in the chat box just now as well, asking, it all looks complicated, how do I start? So it's just the support for teachers, I think, is the key thing, making sure that teachers are well trained, well supported. If they have issues, they have got a hub to go to, they've got somewhere to go for help and support, but also that they've got all of the resources there prepared and ready for them as well. And teachers don't have the time to be learning how to use new technology and developing new resources, as well as all of the other requirements that are already going on at the moment. So they really need something that already has a curriculum that's been developed, that is already linked to the requirements that they have in their national curriculum, with all of their PowerPoints and their lesson plans, and that they can easily pick up and use, and then a good support hub for any technical issues that they have along the way.
All right, thank you, Dr. Melissa Butt. We are almost out of time, but I do have one final question. This is for Dr. Linda William. Now, with the plethora of technology options out there, how do you actually recommend educators stay ahead and evaluate which solutions to employ for their classrooms?
Okay. So to answer to that question, right, I think it's aligned to what Dr. Daniel already mentioned. Technology is just a tool. So we actually need to define what is our pedagogy or what are our interaction in the classroom is before we are able to find the technologies that we wanted to implement. So there are a lot of tools, a lot of even like gamification tools and so on that can actually help to they can help both students and also lecturers to conduct a classroom trainings and so on. But then we will need to go back again to what will be the pedagogy, and then what are some of the topics that we wanted to deliver to the students. So based on that, after we have like what are the learning objectives that we wanted to have, then we can draft out what kind of technologies that can be used for those for this kind of teaching and learning environment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Linda William. I think once again, it goes back to one of the quotes that Dr. Daniel Tan shared, which is about start with the end goal in mind, right? Be very clear about what you want to achieve and then work backwards from there, because otherwise you're just going to be moving around in the dark without knowing where you're actually going to end up. So I think we had very insightful questions as well as presentations from all our panelists today. So once again, thank you very much for your time, Dr. Linda William, Dr. Melissa Pratt, Dr. Daniel Tan, and Prof. Lim, who has already had to leave. I will now hand it back over to Mac for the closing.
Thanks, Nick. So thank you everyone for joining us for our Educators webinar, Transforming Classroom Learning with Technology. And thank you once again to our speakers, Dr. Daniel Tan, Dr. Linda William, Dr. Melissa Pratt, and Professor Lim Chia-Ping, who had to pop off a little bit earlier. And also thank you to our moderator, Nicholas Zhu, for taking the time to be with us. It has been a very insightful 1.5 hours that we've had so far. So thank you for preparing all the material and really engaging with all the educators who are present here today. For all of you watching out there and you don't know, it's actually our last day of the Pratt and Whitney Invention Convention Singapore Open Nationals. So if you haven't, you can still join us at our virtual platform where you can visit the booths of the inventors participating this year. So it's a virtual platform. You can go click around. There are also write-ups about what they have invented. The inventors range from 5 years old all the way to 17, 18. So you see quite a big range of inventions. Also, all of the recordings of the workshops and the judgings are also available at the event stage. This includes yesterday's Educators webinar, where we talk a little bit about nurturing an inventive mindset. We'll also love to hear from you about any feedback about the event in total or this particular webinar. So reach out to us using this feedback form, via this QR code, or through any of our social media handles. Once again, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
All right, thank you everyone. Goodbye. Stay safe.